Hi all, Karthik here from Design School WP Algorithm. In this video, we'll discuss how JetEngine's dynamic repeater widget works. Well, the good news is it can help pull repeaters and display them from its own meta boxes or even from advanced custom field pro plugins repeater fields. We'll see how that works. So in the previous video, which is JetEngine Beginner's Guide, we created a custom post type called recipes, right? So if you go to recipes, and for recipes we created a custom fields or custom field group called recipe group. These are usually called meta boxes in JetEngine. And also we designed a listing item, which is essentially a post loop for recipes, which is recipe blog loop. I want to start with the recipe blog loop. Now in the previous video, which is JetEngine Beginner's Guide, I forgot to mention how to make each and every item clickable. I'll show you that. We'll begin with that. So this is essentially your loop. If you're completely new to JetEngine, check out JetEngine Beginner's Guide in the Crocoblock playlist. You'll understand what I'm talking about. Well, basically this is a post loop or what they call listing item. And to make this whole item clickable so that it will take us to the appropriate post, we just need to click on the settings cog, click on listing settings, and everything else is fine. And you just need to toggle this on, and the link source just leave it to permalink. You can also choose to open it in new window, but I'll just leave it as is and I'll update. Now this will make each and every item in your archive page clickable. So if I go to my website.com/recipes, which is the archive page for a custom post type called recipes, you'll see that each and every individual item will be clickable. Now if I hover over on each of the item, which is basically a recipe, you can see that it turns into a hand, and when I click on it, I'm actually taken to that particular post or that particular recipe, which is neat, right? So I click on it and it redirects me to that particular recipe, just like that. So I've actually cloned all of them, so the names are basically the same for each of them. So that's the first thing. Now coming to the repeaters, let's go to meta boxes that we created. Meta boxes are custom field groups in JetEngine's terminology. I'll just click on edit. I'll add a repeater field. So we have time, ingredients, difficulty, and you can see the type are time, WYSIWYG, select, and gallery. Now I'll click on new meta field. Let's add a repeater field and I'll just call it reap, or I'll just call it repeater. And I'll leave the object type to field, and the type this time is repeater. Now once you select repeater, you need to have subfields within the repeater because you have to repeat certain set of fields, right? That's what repeater means. So when you don't know how many fields or subfields the user needs, you use repeater. You very well know that number of fields that the user needs per each entry. So let's say maybe tips, and for each tip you need a heading and an image. So you can use this, or for hobbies you can use repeater, and within this I'll just have text, or I'll call it tips. The label will be tips and that will be text, and the second field I want to add is a image field, or I'll call it pic, and I'll change the type to media, which is essentially our images. I'll clone this again and I'll change this to gallery or my gallery, and I'll change this to my underscore gallery. The name is really important because this is what we'll use to retrieve and show this using meta boxes, and we'll use something called macros. That's what we're going to discuss. You'll understand what it is, and this time this field I'll just make it a gallery. So for this repeater, we have text field, we have pic, which is media, and then we have gallery, which is essentially an image gallery. I'll show you how to display these by using JetEngine's dynamic repeater widget. Now that we've added the new group, repeater group, I'll just hit on update meta box. Now we'll go to one of the recipes just like posts, we'll just go to one of the recipes and we'll just go to this Chinese Manchurian 1243. I'll just click on edit, and under recipe group we need to add some data, right? So this is the newly created repeater. Let's add some data. So when you click on add, it lets you pick on add as many items as you want. Let's have 3 repeaters or 3 subfields in repeater. You can add as many as you want. So the first one, I'll just call it tip 1, and for this I'll just pick this image, and the gallery I'll pick these 3, and for second subfield I'll say tip 2, and I'll pick maybe this image. You can pick any image, I'm just showing you few samples. So let's pick few images for this second gallery. This has 3 and this has 3. Finally I'll just call this tip 3, and let's pick this one. Let's also pick a gallery for this. I'll pick these 3. I think these 3 would be fine. So I'll just click on choose media. So we added the repeater subfields to this. We need to update this post so that the repeater subfields are added and saved to this post, and the post is updated. Now in the single post design that we designed using JetThemeCore, you just need to go to Jet plugins, click on theme builder. You'll understand what this is. So we have a single post design for recipes, right? So this is a single for recipes, and I'll just open this up by clicking on edit with Elementor. In the previous JetEngine beginner's guide, we designed it using JetThemeCore. That's how I like to design it. You can also do it with Elementor Pro, but JetThemeCore works more consistently with this. So I opened the single post design for that particular recipe item. I'll refresh the page so that it gets the newly added custom fields. I'll just show how the dynamic repeater works with this particular post, which is Chinese Manchurian 1243. Now once the page reloads, so we need to display the repeater field data or repeater subfields that we added to the meta box called recipe group, which will show up essentially in recipes, right? So this is the repeater subfield, and the name of each subfield is important. So when you click on each of this name is what we'll use to retrieve the subfield. Okay, so we just opened up the single theme or single recipe template. Now we need to search for repeater. It's this one by JetEngine. You can either search for it or you can scroll to the bottom of the Elementor interface, and it will be under your listing elements. And it's this dynamic repeater widget that we need to use to retrieve repeater data. Now here's where things get interesting. Now once you drag in, you might be really scared by looking at this, but the kind of downside to using this dynamic repeater widget is that you need a little bit of HTML, and you need to have an idea of something called JetEngine's macros. So macros are essentially nothing but JetEngine's dynamic tokens. So they'll retrieve dynamic data based on user input. So if you enter a macro for this, it will pull all the tips fields, subfields. If you enter macro for this media, it will pull all the tips for this. You'll understand how the macro works. So essentially the name within the percentage along with the percentage symbol itself is called a macro. So this is essentially used to retrieve the data in the repeater fields. First you need to pick the source, and the source for our repeater is from recipes. We have a repeater called repeater, of course, and now you need to pick or type the name of the subfield that you want to retrieve. If it's not gallery, if it's not image, you can simply type the name of the subfield and the data is displayed just like that. You can see tip 1, tip 2, tip 3 being shown here, right? All we entered was a dynamic token, or what they call a macro. So other than gallery and images or files, this macro works for each and every other field type. Now this is HTML, and before this you can add HTML, and after this you can add HTML. So that's kind of a downside, but watch what I'm doing. I'll remove the span tag from here. I'll just enter some HTML. We'll turn each of the row into a table row. So I'll type tr angular braces and one forward slash. I'll close tr, and then we'll have td, and I'll also close td. This is HTML for a table row, and within that this is HTML for table data. Don't worry about it, you can search in W3 schools and you can find it. Now I'm going to put our dynamic token in here, and before we'll just have a table markup, right, so that we're actually making this whole thing into a table, and after I'll just have another table tag. So before the whole repeater starts, I'm actually adding a table, and each of the repeater subfield is going into a table row, and you need to close it by supplying the closing brace here or closing tag here. And within each row I'm putting this into table data or a cell, and that's how I formatted it. It's kind of technical, but this is how JetEngine's dynamic repeater works. So we just put that into a table, and that's really neat. Now I'll just clone this again. I'll paste it right below that. Now we need to retrieve our images, right? So we have the tips, and we can get rid of the gray lines. Don't worry about that, I'll explain that in a bit. Now we need to get our images, right, within the second data. All I did was put some markup. So I'm actually creating a table, and within each table I'm creating a row, and within each row I'm putting table data, and within each cell I'm putting the dynamic tags. So that's what it is. You can search for W3 schools and you can find how the table works. Essentially, instead of static text, I can put some static text here, and that will make this text, right? Instead of text, I'm just putting the macros, which is essentially the dynamic token supplied by JetEngine. So if it's not a gallery widget, or if it's not a image field, you can simply use macros with its name. So 2%, and between that you use the subfield name. So you can pull tips just by that. Now if you want to pull out the image, you need to visit the macros guide, and this is how it works. So you need to copy this whole tag or the whole macro, and you need to replace media1 with the name of the image file that you want to get within your repeater. So this is our first repeater. I'll just format it a bit. I'll just add space so that it's clear. I'll add space here. So we're trying to format the second data or the second column, right? So instead of tips, I'll remove tips from here, and I'll put this macro, which is the macro that you should use to get images from repeater. You can check out the documentation for other macros. So macros are like dynamic tags that need to be used in appropriate places. So in repeater widgets, they have 4 macros, which are name, one for images, one for galleries, and one to get post link. And they have other macros to be used in other widgets such as listing grid, but we'll be focusing on the dynamic repeater widget itself. So first I'll get the image. So media1 needs to be replaced with the image name or the image subfield name. So we need to check what was the image subfield name. It is pic, right? PIC in small letters. You can see that from here, name colon pic. We just need to replace media1 with PIC. Now it doesn't work, right? And they suggested using link tag, which is A. So if you go to the documentation, they suggested that you should use a link tag to display images, but that's not going to work, right? That didn't work for me, at least. So they're suggesting you put the macro within a tag, right? You can simply Google HTML links and you'll get the structure from W3 Schools. So if you click on that, so href, and then you put some link text and then the closing tag. They're suggesting instead of URL, you should use the macro without the double quotes, but that didn't work for me. So what you need to do is to instead search for HTML image. So once you search for HTML image, you get the basic structure from W3 School. So it's this one, image src. Src is the source from where the image should be pulled, and alt is the alt text. So in case the image fails to load, this will be read by the browsers or this will be displayed to the users. Just copy the structure of the image. Let's go back to our macro thing. Right, this whole thing is still valid, but we need to put it in the image source. So I'll paste the image source. I'll remove the alt attribute along with its value. I'll also remove the source within double quotes, and this whole macro should be entered in here. Just like that, it shows up, right? So each of the images from each of the repeater fields shows up. So essentially you need to use img HTML for images, and you can simply Google HTML images and you get the structure. So instead of this whole thing in double quotes, you need to paste the macro, and image 1, media 1 should be replaced with the subfield name, and then those fields will be displayed just like this, right? You can actually put it outside. You need not put it into the table. So I can simply remove this. I can remove all of the structure and put it just like that. All the images show up, right? But you need a little bit of HTML formatting. So I'll stick with the previous convention in which we added it into rows. So the first row will have the first subfield and the second cell will have the image, and so on. You can of course adjust this a bit. Now, speaking of the gallery, how do you retrieve the gallery? For now, I'm going to delete all of this since we understood how we should retrieve images, how we should retrieve the normal fields other than images. Now, what about galleries? Well, galleries are also really simple, but the tag or the macro for it is just a bit different. So this is the macro that you need to use for gallery. For images, you're putting it in image tag, but for gallery, you can simply use it in its raw form. I'll copy this whole macro. I'll go back, I'll paste the macro, and gallery 1 should be replaced with the image name that you have given to your gallery. So in my meta box, I just named it as my underscore gallery. I need to replace gallery 1 with my underscore gallery. Just like that, galleries show up, right? It's better to put that in the previous formatting. So we'll put it into table rows. I'll close and open the row, and within each row I'll add a cell, close and open the cell. This is basically HTML structure for table rows. Now I'll put this whole tag within each of the cell. So that way you have gallery displayed right next to each other, right? That's one way. You can also use CSS grid, but it gets complicated. You better follow this format or this kind of formatting, which is really neat. So essentially each of the item will be added. So whenever there's a repeater subfield, this HTML will be created. So a row will be created, and within row a cell will be created, and within each cell whichever macro that we are entering will be displayed. Since there's one row and one cell, each of the gallery is displayed in two ways or in different rows. I'll just minimize the side panel, and you have this gray border. You can simply get rid of it by typing a little bit of HTML. So you just need to type style. You can also give it a class and target and style it using class, but it gets over complicated. You can simply say border none, and this is called inline styling. You can also paste this into tr, which is essentially your table row, and the same thing can also be pasted into your table. Now you don't see lines anywhere. It's clean gallery. So the first row is first gallery, second row is second gallery, and third row is third gallery. That's a way to display three galleries. If you have four, there'll be four rows. If there are five rows. Hopefully it made sense. All we did was to create a table. So before we're adding a starting table tag, and after we're adding starting table ending table tag. And after that, I'll just remove this for now. We're essentially adding a row and we're closing it, right? This row is closed here, and within row you're adding a cell and we're closing it. Every HTML tag needs to be opened and closed, so we're closing this tag here. So within each of the cell we're putting whatever macro we have. Since we want to display the gallery, we just put this. I'll copy this cell once again, and this time I'll just use the tips. So instead of this whole thing, I can simply say tips, and tips will be displayed in those cells, right? So this cell has tip 1, this cell has tip 2, tip 3, and in the next cell we fit gallery. Of course, it's not a great way to display format, but that's how it works. If you don't understand HTML, you can maybe have different repeaters and simply pull them by using macros. But if you do have a little bit of HTML idea, you can do what I did in this video. So we're able to pull galleries, we're able to pull images, we're able to pull basically any other data using macros. Well, the good news is this repeater widget not only works with meta boxes created by the JetEngine plugin, it also works with meta boxes created by ACF plugin. Let's go ahead and create one. Now we'll create a field group in Advanced Custom Field Pro. Repeaters are part of Advanced Custom Field Pro. They're called field groups. In JetEngine, we call them meta boxes. So I'll create a field group with 3 different fields. I'll call it repeat. I'll just click on add new, and this is also repeater. I'll simply call it repeater. You can name it anything, and this field I'll just make it a repeater, so it will be exactly at the bottom. Once you make it repeater, you obviously need to add subfields. We'll add name, which is text, and then we'll add maybe URL field, right? Let's add image also. Let's add email, call it mail, and third field, let's make it an image, so I'll call it image, and the type should also be an image. Now the gallery field or the ACF gallery field is supposed to work with JetEngine's dynamic widget, but it didn't work. I tested it out. So if you have a gallery in ACF Pro's repeater, it's not going to show up. At least for now, it didn't work at the time of making this video. But if you have a gallery in the repeater of MetaBox of JetEngine, it will definitely work with the particular macro. It didn't work with the gallery of Advanced Custom Field Pro. So I'll just set this post type again to recipes. We'll test it on the same post type. I'll publish this field group. We'll keep this tab open because we need the names of subfields, which are name, mail, and image. Now you can refresh this whole thing, and you can also pull repeater data from Advanced Custom Field Pro. So I'll delete this widget for now, update and refresh this page so that we also need to add the repeater data in the post itself so that we can retrieve it. So I'm refreshing the post. By post I mean the post type, which is recipe. So once this reloads, the recipe group is coming from the JetEngine, and this is coming from our ACF plugin. I'll change name. I'll pick an image. Maybe I'll pick this. I'll select. I'll add another image. So 3 rows, 3 different images. One more thing to note: if you try to duplicate it by holding on shift and clicking on the duplicate row, the data won't be added. So you better click on the plus button and add each of the data. I think it's a bug or maybe a compatibility issue between ACF Pro 5.9 and the latest JetEngine version. Maybe in future they'll work, but at the time of the video, just don't hold down shift and duplicate data. so that it's easier for you, at least while working with JetEngine. Click on plus button and add the data manually, because when I tried to duplicate it, it didn't work. So once you're in here, you can select ACF as the source, and ACF field we created repeater. Let's put the format. Again, it's the percentage, and we need the name of the field, right, or the field group. So I'll click on custom fields. I'm logged out for some reason. Close this. I'll click on this. I need to click on repeater. So the first name is name, so we'll use name. Just like that, I got that right. Again, we can use the same table formatting that I taught you. I'll speed it up. I'll quickly type it. I think it's already present, so I don't even need to type tr, but I'll just type it. So that's how it works. Now that's great. We pulled in the name field by typing the name macro. Again, we need to pull the image, and we need to pull the image using the image macro. It's the same for both the JetEngine's image and also ACF's image. Media should be replaced by the name of the field. I'll go back. I'll remove this whole formatting and I'll just put the thing there. And media one should be replaced with the name, which is pic, PIC. And again, this has to be put in the HTML tag of image img, like I told you. So img src, and you just need to put this whole macro after src, and just like that your images show up. And that's really neat using meta boxes. So that's dynamic repeater widget of JetEngine in action. That's how you use macros. We'll be discussing macros when we discuss those things, but this is how JetEngine works. Also, do check out the JetEngine beginner's guide to get a better idea of JetEngine. This is JetEngine macros and JetEngine repeaters in a nutshell. See you in the next one. Subscribe if you didn't already, and if you don't have JetEngine, get it from the link in the description. See you next time. Peace.